The circle of life has brought all of us back around to our childhoods. If that iconic music score didn't tip you off, today we're covering The Lion King. And not just the first movie. No. We'll be covering the whole franchise from start to finish. Well, mostly the whole franchise. It's been about 20 years since the original Lion King came out. One spin-off, one sequel, and for some reason, 2 live-action remakes later, Simba and friends are still hard at work as icons of Disney Studios. And they have the gold to show for it too. I mean, the original Lion King won 2 Academy Awards and a Golden Globe, not to mention the countless nominations. Come on, that's some serious praise for Hamlet with lions. Now, there are a ton of characters that make up this iconic cast, but just to get started, we have Simba, the lion cub, and the main character of the first movie, the son of Mufasa, the father of the series, and the king that everybody looks up to. And to round things out for now, there's Scar, the scary-looking uncle who's definitely not evil at all. So without any further delay, let's dive right into the very first entry in the series, The Lion King. Our first movie begins with a beautiful montage dedicated to the magnificent Tanzania sunset. The audience, along with all the animals of Pride Rock, watch in awe as we're introduced to Simba, the newborn king. It's here that we meet Rafiki, the wise old baboon and a sort of mentor to the kings. Rafiki anoints Simba with king juice, officially blessing him to be the next king. All the animals of the kingdom rejoice, all except one. The movie cuts to Scar, Mufasa's younger brother. He's playing around with rats in the shadows, being all angsty and mad. Mufasa approaches him after the ceremony, wondering why he wasn't present. Scar sarcastically explains something that Mufasa clearly already knows. Scar wants to be king, and has been overshadowed by his older brother his whole life.
Life's not fair, is it? Well, I shall never be king.
And now, because Simba was born, he has even less of a chance of ever doing it. Their argument ends coldly with Scar slinking off to be by himself once more. What a drama king. A little later in the movie, after Simba goes on a Pride Rock tour with his father, Simba decides to make a stop to visit with Scar. It's there that Scar plants a dangerous plan in Simba's mind. Plans that involve being brave and going to the cool and exciting elephant graveyard where only the bravest lions wander.
Only the bravest lions go there. An elephant graveyard is no place for a young prince. Oops.
An elephant what?
Scar half-heartedly warns Simba not to go, which urges Simba even more. He hurriedly races back to his home where we meet Nala, his best friend and, according to their parents, his life partner. He whispers to her of their new adventure, and she happily agrees to go with him. Simba comes up with a story asking his father to take Nala around Pride Rock. Mufasa says yes, but under one condition. Zazu has to go with him. Zazu is a African red-billed hornbill, known for being an advisor to the kings. And although he would rather not accompany the young king, he obliges due to his loyalty to Mufasa. On their journey, Simba and Nala lose Zazu.
All right, it worked. We lost him. I am a genius. Hey, genius, it was my idea. Yeah, but I pulled it off.
Alone, the two venture off into the smoky terrain of the elephant graveyard. Eventually, they run into 3 hyenas, Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed, who are more than happy to show the 2 young lions their hospitality.
Oh, look at the sun. It's time to go.
What's the hurry? We'd love you to stick around for dinner.
After drooling over the 2 lions and chasing them throughout the Pride Lands, they're interrupted by Mufasa, who caught wind of the situation whenever Zazu returned home without them. Mufasa scares off the hyenas and sends Nala back to her family. Simba assumes he's going to get yelled at, but instead he has a long heart-to-heart with his father. Rather than getting upset with Simba, Mufasa explains to him the weight of how much he cares about Simba. Even if he comes off as a big tough lion, he was still scared to death thinking of his only son being in danger. He then tells Simba the legend of the stars, and how every single one of them is just another great king watching down from above. The 2 then wrestle and lay in the grass together, dozing off until presumably the morning. The movie then cuts to Scar's perspective. He's giving what seems to be a speech to the hyenas, promising them freedom from their graveyards and food for them to eat endlessly. In order to become their king, he asks for their help in getting rid of the current kings, Mufasa and Simba. The next morning, Scar approaches Simba with a task. He wants him to stand at a tree and wait for his father to arrive for a surprise.
Now you wait here. Your father has a marvelous surprise for you.
Ooh, what is it?
If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise now, would it?
Simba, being the young naive lion that he is, obliges without asking any questions. Suddenly, a stampede occurs, leaving Simba nothing but the tree to cling onto. Scar runs up to Mufasa, telling him of Simba's predicament, causing the lion to quickly jump into action. He arrives at the scene and gracefully rescues Simba.
Hold on, Simba.
Unfortunately though, he's unable to save himself and ends up hanging on the side of the cliff for dear life. Scar approaches his brother, but instead of helping him, he digs his claws deep into Mufasa's paws and throws him off the cliff and into the raging stampede below. When the smoke clears, Simba runs up to his father's limp body, extremely distraught and thinking that it's his fault due to him being there in the first place. Scar doesn't make matters any better as he convinces Simba that if he wouldn't have been there, then none of this would have happened. And upon asking Scar for advice, he tells him to run far away as he can and never look back to escape it all and be free from the guilt and judgment of others. So he does. He runs, and he doesn't look back until he's passed out in what appears to be an endless wasteland. This whole sequence of events is just as brutal now as it was 20 years ago. But wipe your tears, folks, because this is where Timon and Pumbaa enter the scene. For those unfamiliar, Timon is the wisecracking, skittish meerkat, and Pumbaa is the, well, smelly but fun-loving warthog. The two, at first, are quite afraid of the lion cub. They soon realize, though, that if they befriend him, then they might end up with some extra protection. Neither of them are natural predators after all. The two bring him into their small oasis where they feed and nourish him. They teach Simba their ways of Hakuna Matata, which means no worries for the rest of or something like that.
It means no worries for the rest of your days.
Simba grows up with them and lives a peaceful teenage life, hanging with his buds and goofing off every single day. That is, until Nala comes barreling back into his life, literally. Nala, scrapped for food and looking for anything to eat, attacks Timon and Pumbaa, and the two go running back to Simba for protection. After a brief brawl, Simba and Nala realize who the other one is, and they instantly reconnect.
Who are you?
It's me, Simba.
Simba?
Timon and Pumbaa are annoyed, since they're basically watching their best friend forget about them for a relationship which seems to be the age-old dilemma. But alas, it's unavoidable. After a moonlight rekindling, Nala presses Simba about his reasons for never coming home, and explains to him all the trouble that has occurred in his absence.
We've really needed you at home. Simba, if you don't do something soon, everyone will starve.
Even though Simba doesn't have that good of an excuse, he refuses to return, claiming that the old him just isn't who he is anymore. The two angrily separate, frustrated and confused. Simba has some not-so-self-reflection because of their encounter. The spirit of his father ends up coming back to him, urging him to remember who he actually is. Rafiki as well shows up and begins yelling riddles of greatness. Simba takes the wise words provided by the two and heads back to the Pride Lands, where he belongs to take his rightful place as king. Upon returning home, Simba is distraught to see Nala's description played out in real life. He's horrified. Everyone is starving. The sun is not shining. Hyenas and muck are everywhere. He demands that Scar give him his rightful kingship back. But Scar, of course, refuses and instead reveals Simba's past to everybody present. Scar backs Simba into a corner and pushes him off the edge of a cliff. It's here that he reveals to Simba the truth of how his father died.
Here's my little secret. I killed Mufasa.
Inches away from being taken out the same way, Simba angrily explodes into the air, knocking Scar and all of the hyenas back. A battle ensues in which Simba is victorious, granting him kingship and living happily ever after with Nala and his friends by his side. The movie ends with everything coming full circle as we witness another king ceremony, this time for Simba and Nala's newborn son. It's the circle of life after all. Our 1.5 movie begins with Timon and Pumbaa deciding that it's time that they share their stories of how they came to be. We start off with Timon's perspective. Young and in his mother's care, he proves to be a not-so-great meerkat, not being able to dig proper holes, not being able to keep watch for hyenas, and not being anxious about dying in the slightest. It gets to the point where, while on watch duty, Timon gets bored and puts together a musical dance number rather than being on the lookout. Timon's lack of awareness leads to hyenas ransacking his community and almost killing his uncle. He begs his mother to let him go on his own journey, away from the pack in order to find himself, since clearly he's in the wrong place.
My place is out there, Ma. Oh, I may not know exactly where or how far, but I gotta go!
She tries her best to convince him to stay, but she does eventually agree to let him go, bidding him farewell and safe travels. By nightfall, Timon has a complete mental breakdown, crying for his mother and wondering where the heck he's going to go. Yes, the life of adventure isn't all that it was cracked up to be. During his tantrum, he runs into Rafiki, who teaches him Hakuna Matata, which means no worries. Timon asks Rafiki to tell him how to get there, but the only information he shares is, go beyond what you can see. This doesn't help, because what does that even mean? But Timon eventually decides to travel towards Pride Rock. When continuing his journey, he runs into a lonesome Pumbaa. Timon is at first afraid, as typically even warthogs would try and eat him. Pumbaa explains to Timon that he doesn't really eat animals much and prefers to eat bugs. He also tells Timon that he doesn't get attacked barely ever, and if he does, animals typically change their mind due to them losing their appetite. Timon happily brings Pumbaa along on his journey as protection. Pumbaa assuming the two are friends, and Timon just content to having an acquaintance. Along their journey, Timon and Pumbaa's story slowly begins to integrate more and more with Simba's story from the first movie. The two were present for the anointing of Simba. They were the reason all the animals fell in Simba's musical number when trying to separate him and Nala from Zazu. They were present and traveling through the elephant graveyard when Mufasa roared to scare off the hyenas and rescue the kids, and they were bombarded by the stampede that ended up killing Mufasa. These two saw it all. After all the trouble that they went through, the two end up falling down a large waterfall into the oasis we know and love, and the one that the two call home. During all the chaos, Timon confirms to Pumbaa that they are actually friends, having a heart-to-heart and bonding the two for life.
You're the only friend I've ever had. And friends stick together to the end.
The movie then cuts to Timon and Pumbaa in the present, with Timon crying at how heartfelt their shared moment was. We all love a little fourth wall break. Anyway, moving on, we are then shown the perspective of Timon's mother, who is just now finding out that Rafiki gave her son a metaphor for instructions, which is an absolutely horrible idea, considering Timon's inability to understand how metaphors work. She begins her own journey to find him, worried that he may be in grave danger. Meanwhile, Timon is in the opposite of danger. He's raising a lion cub with Pumbaa in their oasis, learning the ways of parenthood, bathroom breaks, nightmares, and your own kin surpassing you in things you were once a master at, such as slug slurping. Right when Timon and Pumbaa think that they have it made, Nala shows up and ruins everything.
This is a disaster, Pumbaa. A disaster, I tell you. She's gonna put a stake right through the heart of our Hakuna Matata.
At least by their standards. The two buddies don't take their friend's new love interest lying down, and they do their best to break them up at every turn. But alas, nothing works. Not only that, but Simba goes missing, and Nala ends up chasing after him, leaving the two alone yet again. This causes Timon mental turmoil because he's faced with a new question. Is his home his oasis that he's found for himself, or does home lie where his friends reside? He has a long conversation with Pumbaa, and at first he chooses his own personal fortune, but he quickly realizes that he won't be satisfied without Pumbaa and Simba by his side. He heads off to follow Pumbaa and Nala, wanting to help Simba just as much as the others do. Once at Pride Rock, he reconciles with his mother, who found him by accident while she was digging. Together, the small meerkat family, along with Pumbaa, help on the sidelines of Simba's epic battle with Scar. When he's finally won, Timon shows his mother his oasis and brings all the meerkat pack to rejoice in heaven as well, finally free of the hyenas for good. Our official second movie starts off with us finding out that Simba's newborn baby is in fact not a prince, but a princess. Whoa!
I'm telling you, buddy, it's gonna be like old times. You, me, and the little guy.
It is a girl.
Just kidding. The only people who are actually shocked by this are Simba and Timon, who were excited to live out their boyish glory days with another baby boy. However, the rest of them seem perfectly content with the gender difference. The movie then cuts to Kiara as a cub, and she proves to have the same adventurous spirit that her father once had. But Simba isn't having any of it, as he knows just how much trouble young cubs can get into whenever they're alone. Whenever Kiara wants to wander by herself, Simba instructs her to stay on the designated path that he marked off for her. Not only this, but he also instructs Timon and Pumbaa to follow her to make sure that she doesn't get into any trouble. Whenever Kiara finds out that she's being followed, she's incredibly annoyed and frustrated with her father for not trusting her at all. I mean, before she even saw them, she was listening and was staying on the path, but now she's blinded by her frustration, so she goes off and on her own way. Eventually, she unknowingly travels all the way off of the Pride Lands. It's here that she meets Kovu, a scruffy cub who's a spitting image of Scar. At first, he seems threatening, but he slowly drops his guard when he learns of Kiara's childlike wonder and mannerisms. The two play together until they're ruthlessly attacked by alligators.
One. Yeah.
Kiara ends up saving Kovu, and the two bond because of this, with Kovu being shown kindness from a stranger for probably the first time in his entire life. Their innocent moment gets interrupted by Simba and Zira, who instantly begin arguing with each other on behalf of their children. It's here that we learn that Kovu is not a child of Scar. He was simply one of the last cubs born from the lions that were banned from Pride Rock for aligning themselves with Scar.
Oh, haven't you met my son, Kovu? He was hand-chosen by Scar and become king.
Which is good, because it would have been weird for Kiara to end up liking her cousin. Anyway, moving on, Zira mentions the price for coming into Pride Lands again is death, and she happily offers up baby Kovu even though he doesn't know anything about that. Simba is disgusted by Zira's lack of empathy for cubs in her pride, and essentially scoffs at the idea of him killing a child. He tells her to get out, and takes Kiara away from Kovu. The two cubs exchange sad looks, both losing choosing a new friend before they could even truly flourish together. Upon leaving, the two receive opposite treatment. Kiara is shown mercy and love even after she tells Simba that she doesn't even want to be a queen.
You need to be careful. As future queen...
What if I don't want to be queen? It's no fun.
Instead of responding with anger, Simba calmly explains to her just how much it means to be part of their pride. She slowly loosens up and begins being more warm to her family and the ideas that she must pass on. On the other hand, we're shown where Kovu has been living, specifically amongst two lions named Vitani and Nuka, Zira's birth children. Vitani is a young cub like Kovu, and she proves to be much smarter than Nuka, her older brother. Apparently, while Zira was away, Nuka was supposed to be watching over Kovu, but he secretly has it out for him, as he wants to be the talk of the pride. Before Scar died, he chose Kovu to be the cub that Zira and the other band lions nurse into. Essentially, he chose Kovu to become the next great king to live out the ideals that Scar himself could not. Upon being questioned about the endeavor and telling Zira that Kovu actually enjoyed his time with Kiara, Zira comes up with a brilliant plan. She wants Kovu to befriend Kiara.
You thought you'd get to the daughter, and Simba would welcome you with open arms? What an idea! What an idea!
And once he's closer to her and brought into her personal space, she wants Kovu to kill Simba and take over the lands. The movie then shows us a snippet of Rafiki asking Mufasa for guidance to their current situation, in which he comes to the conclusion that Mufasa wants Kovu and Kiara to get together for real. This confuses Rafiki, but he's never one to question the spirits, and he goes about his business with this in mind. We're then shown Kiara all grown up and going on her first ever hunt. This is a big deal for the lioness, since they're the ones who provide for the different families. She's super excited and relieved whenever she finds out that her mother specifically told Simba not to get involved and to let her go off on her own for once. Unfortunately, right after she leaves, we see Simba instruct Timon and Pumbaa to yet again follow her. Because of how loud they eventually are caught, and Kiara is pissed. She runs away from the Pride Lands, certain that if she goes far enough away, then her father cannot interfere. At the same time as Kiara's hunt, Zira has planned a deadly attack with Kovu in mind. She sends Nuka and Vitani to start a fire in order to plant a trap for Kiara.
Let's light fire!
Once almost passed out in the smoke, Kovu saves her, which is all part of the plan. He's welcomed into the Pride Lands with open arms and slowly grows closer to Kiara. Zira and her children are annoyed with how long it's taking him to kill Simba, but Zira holds out hope that Kovu is just waiting until the perfect time. While waiting to make his attack, he grows much closer with Kiara, going on dates with her and genuinely building a connection. He realizes that he doesn't want to work for his stepmother anymore and wants to confess to Kiara. Zira notices Kovu's change of heart and sets out to expose him in front of Simba as a way to get him back on their side. The morning that Kovu sets out to tell Kiara everything, he's interrupted by Simba, who wants to have a father-son talk with him.
Kiara, I need to talk to you. Kiara, I don't want you talking with him. I want to talk with him.
He takes Kovu out into the fields, and while they're alone, he's suddenly attacked by the evil Pride. They make it look like Kovu was in on it, even though he wasn't, which instantly makes Simba turn on him. Simba barely makes it out alive, telling Kiara and Nala what happened when he eventually returns home. Kiara is in disbelief, and tries to tell Simba that what happened can't possibly be the truth, but he doesn't listen. Even when Kovu comes crawling back to them, after leaving his own pride and begging for forgiveness, Simba doesn't listen. Instead, he banishes Kovu just like the rest of them, insisting that he's just like Scar.
When you first came here, you asked for judgment, and I pass it now. Exile!
Yara runs away due to his father not listening to her, and she eventually finds Kovu. The two rekindle and head back to the Pride, only to witness their two prides at each other's throats. The two leap into action, stopping the fight on each person's respected side. They talk the fight down, explaining that they are all the same in the end, that they should just make up. All of Zira's allies end up siding with Kiara and her family, rather than Zira and Scar's messed up version of one. Zira becomes furious and attacks Simba, but she's countered by Kiara herself, who throws the two off the cliff that they're all on. Kiara is fine, but Zira ends up holding on for dear life. Kiara tries to rescue Zira, but she eventually falls and is swept away by the river. The movie ends with Kiara and Kovu marrying, and the two prides officially becoming one, finally all together again. They say goodbye with one final roar. Claiming the land as their own and embracing their new sense of family. And with that, we conclude The Lion King. I hope you all enjoyed going on this Simba-worthy adventure with me. If you want more videos like this in the future, leave a like and subscribe. See ya!